Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. The Magi here, and I'm known for having some fairly strong feelings, advising people not to waste their wild cards on random two-color dual lands. But it turns out things have changed a little bit, and today we are going to turn that advice upside down. But before we get into all that, allow me to take a moment for some real talk. You're most likely here at the Stronghold because you've taken notice of the value-oriented content that I make. It may seem out of this world, but the truth is mid-range channels like this only make it thanks to viewer support. The reality is YouTube simply doesn't do enough ad share profit sharing to cover even basic cost of operations for a channel like mine. I've never envisioned the Stronghold as a way to make money, but having it reach a level of self-sufficiency would be really nice. And hey, I'm all about value, and that effort doesn't fall short in my Patreon. For as little as a $1 a month pledge, you get access to additional content, analysis, and tools, as well as a shout out in most every YouTube video I produce. The list and draft analysis alone could easily add $1 or more to your collection every month. Best of all, your support goes right back into the channel and the expanding content I produce. There's a link to my Patreon page in the description below, so I'd appreciate it if you take a moment and check it out. Every bit of support, no matter how small, makes a huge difference to our future. Thanks so much for your time and consideration. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. My usual advice when it comes to rare lands is to first and foremost invest in flexible lands, ones that can allow you to generate any color of mana or fetch out a particular color producing land from your deck. That way, rather than being tied to a specific two-color pair, you can run these lands in deck after deck. I believe that that is absolutely still one of the best things that you can be doing, particularly early on in your arena career. Final Fantasy's Starting Town is a great example of this, as it functions as a pain land for any color of mana. With the release of Edge of Eternities, we have the Shocklands back in Standard. And make no mistake, these are the best dedicated dual lands that Arena has to offer. And even though Edge of Eternities only gave us half, these are strong additions to your collection. We are also most likely to get the remaining 5 Shocklands with the release of Lorwyn Eclipsed, expected in January of 2026. The Shockland inclusions have not been confirmed at this point, but are very consistently speculated, not only content creators like myself, but many pro players as well. These two printings together could easily put a 40 rare wildcard strain on your resources over the course of the next 6 months, but it doesn't have to. So before you go rocketing off and spending all of your wildcards on mana bases, allow me to make a few suggestions. First and foremost is to make smart use of your non-wild card resources. Be sure to draft and open all of your free available packs before you spend any wild cards. Probably not just on Shocklands, but most of the rares and mythics in the sets. Secondly, allow me to suggest that your typical budget player is not likely to have good decks in all 5 of these color combinations. In fact, it's much more likely that you only have good decks in 2, perhaps 3 of these color combinations, and that's really where you want to focus your investment resources like Shocklands. Because remember, upgrading a mana base makes a good deck more consistent, but it's never going to make a bad deck good. Don't waste your wildcards on that. For this next one, we really need to be willing to let our thinking flip upside down, if you would. Because while I agree that 4 copies of each of the Shocklands, whether you're talking about the Edge of Eternities 5 or the potential Lorwyn additional 5, it's a great idea. But what if that's not the short-term goal? What if instead our short-term goal was to have just 2 copies of each Shockland by the end of the corresponding season, in this case, Edge of Eternities. And I don't do a lot of previews here on the channel because, well, I wouldn't do much else the way preview season works these days. But there is a card that we need to consider. And of course, I am hinting at Multiversal Passage from the soon-to-be-released Spider-Man set. Is this card as good as a Shockland? No, but the fact is it solves a lot of the same issues. It does your mana fixing for you, it thins your deck down, and it has the flexibility to come in untapped when you need it to at the cost of just 2 life, just like the Shocklands do. We could then use our 4th slot for something like the previously mentioned Starting Town, or even the Temple dual land from your starter deck. And, well, believe it or not, you end up with a mana base that, as far as win rate is concerned, functions to within about 1% of the same deck that was running 4 Shocklands instead. So even if you never drafted or opened one of the Shocklands, and you insisted on playing all 5 color combinations, you've managed to reduce your wildcard load from 20 all the way down to 11. And that's a 45% reduction. That's amazing for such a low impact on your win rates. Ultimately, this allows you the time and freedom to continue testing those decks, figure out which ones really matter, not just to you, but to the meta, and then make sure you have your 4 Shocklands for the decks that really want it and deserve it. So you tell me, guys, what sounds better? Spending 40 wildcards that have virtually no flexibility within your collection? Or spending likely no more than 21 wildcards with a 50% flexibility? And keep in mind, that number can go a lot lower depending upon how your drafting and pack opening goes, as well as how realistic you are about the number of decks that are really worth the Shocklands. That's like getting at least 19 bonus wildcards in the short term. You tell me, do you think you could find something to do with 19 additional wildcards over the next 6 to 9 months? I bet we all could. So there it is, guys. My thoughts as the Shocklands come to standard on Arena and beyond. Don't forget, of course, if we change our thinking about deck building, we can be not only in better control of our resources, but of course also feel less victimized by the often blamed arena economy. And who doesn't at least want to feel like they're in more control of what's going on around them? And I bet one thing is absolutely for certain, we can all find ways to use those freed up wildcards. Whether that is improving more marginal decks to get them up to a good status, or to begin exploring other formats in Midweek Magic and beyond. Eternal formats are out there, guys. You just gotta wait and be patient to get there. Because I can absolutely tell you that the difference between riches and wealth is having patience and discipline. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about the arena economy or the global economy. It all comes out about the same. And before we go, I really want to take a moment to thank my patrons for their months of continuous and reliable support here at the Stronghold. It's this kind of support that really gives me the confidence to make investments in the Stronghold, despite the fact that I'm investing money out of pocket month after month. But thank you guys. This means so much and allows me to do so much for the community. And of course, I have some suggestions for some additional content right here on the Stronghold.